Hey, Michelle, is it letting you load your slides? Yeah, that's odd because it's showing you as not as a panelist, as an attendee, and it doesn't let me give you any rights, like make you a co-host or anything. So that's why we come in early. We'll get it figured out.
Hey Jackie, it's Mallory. I just want to let you know I have it promoted to YouTube. So I gave you host back. So
Super, super duper. I saw you there doing that.
Okay.
And I appreciate you.
Sorry, I had to take away host for a second.
No,
so
that was fine.
So, okay. So yeah, I
Mhm.
gave you host back so I can jump out. Do you need help with Michelle or do you think you got it?
No, I know she's going to log back in because she probably came in on the wrong link here. I see her there. Michelle, if you can hear me, are you coming in on the link? Because I can see you type in the chat. Are you coming in on the link that Jesse sent for us to log in early? Okay, well then that might be, I don't know why.
Jackie, do you have,
Yes, ma'am.
since you're a host again, can you try to maybe move? Do you have any options to like promote her to a host?
It's giving me an ellipsis now. Let me see. I can
Okay.
promote her to panelist and let's see what happens. Okay, there you go. I think
Yeah.
panelist did the trick. Michelle, if you should now be able to see that green share screen button. Looking pretty good.
Can you hear me?
I can hear
Yeah, we
you.
can.
Yep. Great.
All right, Jackie, I'm gonna bow out. I gotta go pick up my little one from school. But I just
Okay,
wanted to
you
make
have a
sure all
great
that was
day.
set
And
up.
as always,
Yeah,
we
thank you, you
appreciate
too. Bye.
Bye now. Hey there, Jesse.
Good afternoon. How is everyone?
Hello. I put a necklace on for you.
It looks beautiful. I like that color blue too, Michelle.
Oh, thank you.
Put on a button-up shirt for you.
Between me and you, we got the colors on.
That's it.
Jackie should be wearing white, but he didn't.
That's it.
This is my Thursday wardrobe.
That's it. It looks lovely.
Well, I'm here if you need me. Jackie, I got the certificate ready to go for the end, and I'll.
Super duper.
What's
I
that?
probably appreciate it. I appreciate it. And
Of course.
the only thing I'm sitting here wondering is we sit on this slide while we wait for everybody to get in. And as soon as we get to the top of the hour, go to the next slide for me real quick.
Right. Yeah. When you hit the recording to go, move to the next slide. Yep. That'll be the one that you start on.
Because I don't really have it in my notes here on my script until the second half, when we're almost done to say, okay, advance my slide. When we talk about certificates and who's coming next and stuff like that. So, okay, well then, yeah, go ahead, Michelle, put it back on that first one and off we go.
Okay, so when I hear that it's recording, I go to the second slide.
Yes. Or you hear me do that. Welcome, let's get started. Because I'm just going to click. Well, you know what? I'll probably say, let me start the recorder so everybody knows, and then off we go. Because right now it's just paused.
Okay.
I guess that's it. You have arrived. It's going to be a good one.
We shall see. I'm like vibrating because I accidentally had coffee today.
Well, you
That's good.
accidentally had coffee.
Well, coffee seemed real good because we got back really late last night, but then sometimes it gives me jitters. So
Oh, I can drink a pot of coffee and then go to sleep.
no,
Doesn't
not
give
me.
me jitters. Okay,
Usually
well, I'm
only
gonna,
have like one or two a week. So
Well, it's going to be fantastic. Susan and Susan's here. I mentioned to her that thanks for coming early to get a good seat.
front row, front
That's
row.
right. You're in for a great story, Susan, and a great discussion afterwards. Can't wait.
hi, everybody. We're showing about 10 minutes before the top of the hour, and I just want to pop on here and thank the early bird folks for coming in, getting a good seat. You're in the right spot. If you're looking for Ed Talks, you're in the right spot. And with that, we are going to try our very best to get started right at the top of the hour. So sit tight and we'll be back soon. Thank you. Hi, everybody. Just so you know, we're here and we're waiting. We're about 5 minutes before the top. Sometimes I think maybe I should have some background music so that you know the audio's working, rather than me just popping in here and occasionally saying things to let you know the audio's working. But hey, guess what? Audio's working. We'll see you at the top of the hour. Thanks, everybody. Well, hi, everybody. I'm showing the top of the hour, so let me go ahead and turn on the recording. I believe the recording is on. So I want to do a quick shout out to Academic Affairs Mallory for, while we're here in Zoom, she's also working hard behind the scenes to take us to YouTube Live. So thanks, Mallory and Academic Affairs, for doing that. And before we begin, everybody, just as a reminder, when you registered for this gathering by attending this Zoom webinar, you do acknowledge that this session will be recorded and may be used for future UAGC presentations. So welcome. We know you have many choices when selecting your professional development, and there are many opportunities here at the University of Arizona Global Campus. So thank you. Thank you for choosing Ed Talks here in the Department of Education and Liberal Arts. I'm Jackie Kiger, and I'll be your host for today. Today will be our third session of the year. Now, for those of you who maybe are new to Ed Talks, this is not your traditional professional development webinar. Ed Talks are fashioned after TED Talks, that ever popular way of sharing concepts through personal storytelling. While many, if not all, of the personal stories of our Ed Talkers throughout the years tend to bring forward emotion, as we sometimes laugh, smile, cry, or feel our empathy in a very strong way. For this reason, we want to let you know that the story you're about to listen to includes sensitive content that some individuals may find difficult to listen to. Our 2023 Ed Talk series is entitled Sowing Seeds, which is inspired by the work of UAGC faculty leader, Dr. Newton Miller. This year's series introduces sowing and growing seeds as a metaphor for better understanding the relationship between learner and educator, or seed and sower. Each session examines principles through this lens to develop the mindset aimed at maximizing potential and promoting growth and achievement for learners in the online higher education environment. Dr. Michelle Simasek is here to explore and extend our journey of sowing seeds with her story of not being afraid to use fertilizer and pesticides while setting high expectations within the fields of education, our online classrooms. Now, as you listen to Michelle's story, you might listen for your call to action to share your best practices that promote growth and support in a new way with your students or your colleagues, or perhaps you will find a new practice that Michelle's story sparks for you. Hey, Michelle, will you come on camera and say hello? As I'd like to introduce you to everyone.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Jackie. Thank you for having me today.
We're very happy to have you here. Dr. Michelle Simasek teaches in the Bachelor of Arts in Early Childhood Education. She holds a doctorate in educational leadership and state licenses as a curriculum director, principal, and superintendent. Prior to UAGC, she spent much of her career teaching in the public school system as an elementary teacher for kindergarten through third grade and as a reading specialist at all levels, and as an instructional coach for her peers. Michelle enjoys spending time with her husband and their two children, and as a family, they enjoy traveling, both the United States and international. As a fun fact, Michelle, while pregnant with her son Landon, had the opportunity to meet and shake hands with Oprah Winfrey while visiting her show. So in proxy, her son Landon too sort of met Oprah Winfrey. Michelle, thank you so much for being here today. I'm now going to ask that we remove our video so that we can get started after a few brief reminders. Next slide, please. As a reminder, Ed Talks are fashioned after TED Talks, that ever popular way of sharing personal stories for only 18 minutes of monologue. We do this because we want to hear your story, and we can best do that by starting with our stories. Our goal here is not necessarily to teach you anything new, as you're already an expert in your field. Our goal is to perhaps motivate you to try something new in your approach to helping your students succeed. Our storytelling approach is geared to not take a lot of your time, but rather to simply set the stage for an interactive conversation and perhaps encourage you to encourage your students in new ways. As I mentioned at the beginning, our 2023 Ed Talk series reflection and extension, it's inspired by the principles and the work of Dr. Newton Miller and his book, Why Some Seeds Don't Grow. Now, at the end of our Ed Talk, we look forward to hearing your story of what you are doing or will do in your classroom or educational setting. After Michelle's story, we will invite all participants to share your reflection and practices. And so with that, audience members, if you could please hold your comments in the chat to the end. And Michelle, the microphone is yours.
Thank you for the introduction, Jackie, and thank you to everyone who came today to hear the Ed Talk. As I visit with you for the next several minutes, I want you to be thinking about these 3 questions on the screen. How can we get to know the needs of our seeds? What fertilizer do you use to help your classroom seeds grow? What pesticides do you use to make sure your seeds can flourish? As we've been using Dr. Miller's book, Why Some Seeds Don't Grow, to guide our discussions, we know not all seeds need the same care to grow. I was especially taken by Chapter 5's title, Don't Be Afraid to Use Fertilizer and Pesticides. It reminded me not only of the work we are trying to do at UAGC through the culture of care, but also the work that those of us who are parents do at home every day. Before we discuss Chapter 5, I want to tell you a story about my son. Many of you already know that I have 2 kids, a daughter, Sierra, who just finished her first year of college at the University of Miami in Florida this week, and our son, Landon, who will graduate high school on May 21st. But today I want to talk to you about my son. This past December, Landon opened an email to learn that he was accepted into his dream college, the United States Air Force Academy, making it the best Christmas gift he could have asked for. I cannot overstate enough the intense amount of preparation that he had to do to be in the position to earn this acceptance. Only about 10% of those who apply to the program receive appointments. It requires top grades, high national test scores, hundreds of service hours, demonstrated leadership skills, athletic abilities, and an interview with and receive a nomination from a member of Congress. It was a tough application process, to say the least, and he excitedly accepted his appointment. So now the real work is going to start. We will be dropping him off at the Academy in Colorado Springs in just 47 days. Not that I'm counting. To report for his service and education that's going to take him away from home for the next 10 plus years. Now I can assure you, Landon had a lot of fertilizer along the way, as well as some pesticides, allowing him to grow into the young man capable of being appointed to the Air Force Academy. This, however, is not where my story starts. My story actually starts 30 years ago when I was told by a team of doctors that I very well might not be able to have children of my own. Without getting into a lot of detail in what now seems like a lifetime ago, I can promise you that the road to motherhood for me was very long and rocky. In the end, we were lucky and definitely blessed that through a sequence of events that were very personal, painful, and time-consuming, we ended up with 2 healthy children, first our daughter, Sierra, then our son just 20 months later. I would never have guessed in a million years that my son would be going into a service academy. Our family does not have a lot of experience with the military, aside from a few more distant relatives. So Landon didn't have anyone around him growing up talking about this route as an option. And to be honest, it seemed like a pretty far departure from the path I thought he was on growing up. Having an older sister, Landon gravitated towards many of the same activities she did, mainly dance and the arts. At about the age of 4, we noticed he had a real passion for performance when he performed in his first dance recital. I could segue for hours into how this kid won more awards than I can count for dance, and even a national dance title at the age of 12 for a tap solo. The point is, he always was true to himself in his own interests and talent. He consistently brought the house down with his many performances on stage over the years, and my husband and I were there supporting him in all of his artistic endeavors. He had already taken dance lessons since the age of 3, and he seemed to love all things musical. So when he expressed an interest in learning the drums, we found him a teacher. Same with guitar. When he wanted to audition for a professional theater role, we found him a voice coach. After his first professional theater audition, he landed a role in the production of Oliver, where he performed in 80 shows over 6 weeks. It was a full-time paid opportunity that required him to miss quite a bit of school during his freshman year, but also offered him a chance to be a part of something amazing with many actors just like him. The memories I have of him sharing that stage with such amazing talent, many of whom now grace Broadway stages, TV screens, and movies, will last me a lifetime. Chapter 5 in Dr. Newton Miller's book talks about enriching the soil for the seeds in our care. And while you might think I'm just an average stage mom, I would like to argue that I'm a nurturing mom, one who tries every single day to create a nourishing environment for her children. I never took for granted these 2 seeds, my children, and I have felt grateful every single day for the past 19 plus years that they both call me mom. Because remember, there was a day when I thought I might not have children at all. I have always consciously supported any dream they each have and do my best to either help or push them as needed over time. This feeling of being a blessed mom carried into my career as an educator. Out of my over 20 years in public education, the last 15 were spent in high poverty schools in rural Wisconsin, where I quickly found a way to advocate for students who didn't necessarily have parents at home adding that needed fertilizer for their own seeds due to varying circumstances. I believe that it takes a village of farmers to cultivate the crops. None of us do it alone. I always remembered that my own 2 kids were lucky to have that in place at home, and I knew deep down it was my duty to offer as much fertilizer to the seeds in my care during the school day as well. Chapter 5 in Why Some Seeds Don't Grow mentions the responsibility that lies on educators to really make those personal connections with our students. This is something I am passionate about because in my career, I have seen firsthand the difference that can make in the life of a child. Now back to my son. I wish I could tell you that all of these incredible experiences on stage brought him nothing but joy in his life. And of course, they did bring many times of happiness. But the truth is that because of his artistic endeavors, he was often ostracized from his peers. Starting in about 4th grade, friends that he had in his younger years began to make fun of him for being a dancer, calling him all kinds of names, as you might imagine. The birthday party invitations and requests for playdates stopped around this time. In middle school, things got worse, and he was completely socially isolated by his former friends. Our small town revolves around football, making it a challenge for the boys who choose an alternate path. I remember dropping him off at his middle school dances alone, wishing he would have been invited along with the many groups of kids I saw walking in the doors together. Right before high school started, I assured him that he would find his people by joining the drama department. I had been told that the drama kids watch out for one another. So he signed up right away as a freshman and decided he would audition for the high school musical later that fall. Again, he worked with his voice coach to strengthen his singing voice, and he was just wrapping up that role in Oliver, so he was audition ready. All of this led to the unheard of, a freshman landing the lead role. We were elated. And what should have been an exciting time is when things got really ugly for Landon. But he kept it all to himself. What we didn't learn until several months later was that this experience he would have preparing for the musical would be one of the most challenging times in his life. We learned later on that one of the senior boys believed he had earned the right to have the lead male role, and he felt pretty scorned when it went to a freshman. So he and his friends decided to make Landon's life miserable. Not wanting to tell us what was happening, Landon went to practice every day, worked with his vocal coach at night, and practiced for hours and hours to be ready for that performance, all while being tormented at each and every practice. When the time came for the musical, he performed beautifully. We hope this performance might finally earn him just a little bit of respect from his peers. Sadly, the show almost canceled completely because it was just days before the statewide COVID shutdown. In the end, they did perform, but only for the parents, and none of his classmates ever saw him rock that stage. That musical performance was the last time those kids were in the high school for almost an entire year. The following week, everything changed. Schools went remote, and our already somewhat shy boy became 100% isolated. During the pandemic, theaters completely shut down. So this was disappointing as he had just cast a larger role for his second professional production set to go on stage that June. That show was pushed back and then eventually canceled altogether. With all activities shut down and every outlet that he had with peers put on hold, he became withdrawn. As I think back to this time, I recall that we were all struggling to adapt to life fully online for our children and ourselves. As we may know from working at UAGC, making those personal connections in an online platform is challenging. It takes some creativity, some thinking out of the box, some fertilizer, if you will. Our department at the university even created a series called The Dog Ate My Face Mask to help connect parents and educators to strategies and resources to support children during this difficult time. My kids' high school teachers were just trying to survive, so it is no surprise that they did not realize that my son, and likely others, were really struggling. In the fall of 2020, things got worse, and we watched our boy fall deeper and deeper into a darkness he could not seem to shake. His once permagrin smile that lit up my day was replaced by a sullen, stoic expression. His eyes became glassy and empty, and it was hard to know if this was just a new teenage phase or if something else was going on. I think many of us were feeling out of sorts during this time, so we tried to be patient. Many of you know all too well that parenting teens is not for the faint of heart. And all we really knew was that we had not seen our child smile in ages. Now, teachers and adults are usually quite complimentary of our son. He's a relatively well-known kid in town, recognized in the local papers as the town's youngest Eagle Scout, who at the age of 14 led a crew to install 4 brick welcome signs at each corner of the town. He's always had kind of a quiet yet mature personality and a witty sense of humor. Skills appreciated by adults, but not necessarily his peers. During the fall virtual parent-teacher conferences, my husband and I asked his teachers, how is he doing? Now, teachers have always had the same things to say about Landon. He's very bright, kind, and willing to volunteer in class, although a bit scattered and disorganized. Over the years, when we would confide about his social struggles with peers, it always took the teachers by surprise. They always said they would never have known from what they see in the school. However, this time around, his chemistry teacher told us something new. She had also been the musical director for that show right before shutdown. She gave us additional insight into the bullying that our son experienced. While we knew he had been harassed a little, we did not fully know the extent back when it happened, as Landon never really said much. To this day, I'm not sure why we didn't learn any of this until months after it actually happened, but the teacher ended up quitting her role as director because of her disappointment in how the kids treated our son. She said in her 30 years of teaching, she had never seen kids be so cruel, for no real reason other than their own jealousy. They tormented him for the entirety of rehearsals and carried it into the school days as well. Here we thought our kid would find his people joining the musical. We had no idea that those people would make his life miserable. This conversation was an aha moment for us, trying to connect the dots with what we noticed at home. This teacher said she tried many strategies to deal with the students causing the problems, but was not receiving support from the administration. They were busy tackling the rumors of COVID shutdown and planning for that. She was on her own with a few pesticides to try to take care of her seeds, but she had no luck. She felt like she failed her crop and had all summer to think about it. She apologized profusely for not reaching out sooner and assured us she would be doing her very best to connect with Landon over the semester via Zoom meetings to try to check in on him. A couple of weeks later, we woke up to a very long written note from Landon. He expressed feelings of helplessness and not wanting to live, quote, like this anymore. He begged us to allow him to get some professional help. And of course, my husband and I did not hesitate and made phone calls immediately. I go back to the idea that I consider us to be nurturing parents. We want our kids to come to us for anything, knowing that we have their backs. This young man, the one I just told you is going to the Air Force Academy, well, there were many nights during that time that I spent just hoping and praying he was going to make it through the night. It was not an easy road, but with some support from a couple of professionals as well as family members, Landon was eventually able to see the light again. He slowly began to turn around and find his way. Landon had a village of nurturers around him at this time, but he also spoke up and told those of us closest to him what he needed. What if he had not? What if he had not felt like he could ask for this type of help? Let's be honest, there is a real stigma, especially for young people, and even more so boys, around mental health. I thank God every day that my child recognized he needed that help and reached out. Again, I began to feel very lucky that with some solid fertilizer, my seedling was taking hold and beginning to flourish again. Not all of your students will reach out to you. These seeds in our care, they do not all come with that nifty set of instructions on the back of their package, letting us know how and where to plant them and notes about what they need to thrive. Sometimes it takes a few crops that don't turn out before we get one that does, and we have to learn over time. Since we are teaching online, we may not observe our students' needs easily. How can you read their signs? How can you offer a check-in, which might make them feel comfortable enough to speak up and ask for help? It became evident to us over the years that Landon's teachers had no idea about how much he struggled socially. He carries himself in a way that just does not cry for attention. If he was one of your students, would you even know? Landon would absolutely not be where he is today without a strong set of nurturers around him. He was planted and received plenty of fertilizer and pesticides. But I state strongly that we could not chase his dream for him. All we could do was support him and connect him to the resources so that he can make his dream a reality. We could not take his tests, interview with the representative from Congress, get the needed grades, or pass the physicals. None of it. It had to be all him. He needed to do it all so that he would be adequately prepared for what lies ahead of him. What we did do was support him by connecting him to resources and giving him reminders. We even practiced interview skills in the kitchen. But he did it all on his own when it was time. He was ready. I don't know about you, but I want this degree my students get at UAGC to mean something down the road. I want them to graduate with not only a piece of paper, but also a feeling as prepared as anyone else with a degree graduating from any other institution. For our students at UAGC, the answer always isn't giving them more, but making them aware of what they already have. We have some wonderful resources available to support our students in the journey. Maybe we need to pause, learn about who they are and what they need, and connect them with what we already have in place to help them find their own success. Dr. Miller reiterates that it is up to us, those working with our students, to ensure that they are not settling for less than they are capable of. So how do we help them realize and achieve what they are capable of? The fertilizers that we add to our online classrooms might look like adding personalized videos extra office hours, maybe using the big blue button with students. Maybe you offer live weekly sessions, one-on-one tutoring, or share helpful links to tutorials from the Writing Center. But what about those pesticides? I know pesticides can sound scary because we know they kill things. In my classroom, I try to kill the "I can't" attitude that some students walk in with. When I hear doubt coming from my students, I like to connect with them one-on-one and map out a plan that helps them see that they can succeed. Maybe the pesticides are killing bad habits. If a student asks for an extension week after week, perhaps the third week you work with that student to make the extension shorter, with the goal of the following week getting all the work turned in on time. After all, we cannot be the only ones pulling the weeds in their gardens so that they can thrive. We need to teach our students how to move past their own obstacles. I would love to open up the conversation today into ways that we can use those pesticides along with fertilizers to remove some of the obstacles so that our seeds at UAGC can grow and flourish.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you very much for sharing this story. Trying to get my video to come on. There it is. Well, firstly, as a retired military officer myself, I'm thrilled to know that your son, Landon, has taken his education to a place of military service. Wow, what an opportunity. But the bigger wow here is that he shared his vulnerability with you and overcame bullying situations to be that best version of himself. And come this June, that best version will be as a freshman cadet at the United States Air Force Academy. The Air Force motto, aim high, fly, fight, and win, which is both a call to action and a promise to respond. And thank you, Dr. Simasek, for sharing a mother's journey that ends with wishing you could have done more, but knowing so would get in their way. And the same is true in your example of teacher and instructor. We need to know when to add fertilizer to the growth process for learners and when to apply a pesticide to stop negative habits that hinder that learning growth. And thank you for showing us that in all we do for our students, part of that is getting out of the way and letting them grow, not doing it all for them. Thank you for the vulnerability of sharing through this medium that things are not always what they appear, that our approach to our expectations and differentiation consider things that we see or may not see, and things that we know or may not know. So for those of you here today, as we open up the chat lines to consider your takeaways from today's story, let's frame our discussion around the consideration of not being afraid to add both fertilizer and pesticides that promote learning. Consider these questions as we reflect on our own teaching practices, looking through that lens of sowing seeds and supporting that student's success. So please start sharing your impressions, as I see in the chat here, your ideas, and perhaps your new approach with us. And also, on a quick sidebar, make sure that your chat is set to everyone, because everyone wants to read what you're writing and sharing. We would also love to hear from you. So to share with us using your audio, just simply raise that virtual hand icon at the bottom of your screen. I think it's at the bottom of your screen. You will then be given the opportunity to unmute your microphone and share your story or reflection in that way. So we invite you to join that conversation now to inspire others. Having heard Michelle's story. We want to hear your story.
I've unmuted. Oh, okay, I'm here. First of all, thank you for sharing your story, Michelle. And it's a keen reminder to a mom of an 8-year-old boy that this time is going to go by very quickly. But the thing that spoke to me the most was that we really need to do our best to not just reach out to our students who we can visibly see having issues, but those students that seem to be just floating by with, no worries, keeping up with the assignments, doing everything, because often those are students who also need help. And so I think trying to set our mind to not just reaching out to those that are having a hard time, but also sending those signal messages to the students who are being successful and acknowledging that you see their work, because sometimes after that acknowledgement, they might be more willing to share some of the struggles they're having that we don't really see.
Yeah, I love that, Allie. And I feel like that's my kid. Year after year, nobody ever saw he was struggling, because he's going to turn in what you ask for. He's going to give you what you want as a student. But, there's another side to our students, and they're carrying things with them. And, we might be their only lifeline at that time. So just creating an opportunity for them to feel comfortable, so that maybe they feel like they can reach out to us, I think is so important.
And hi, Allie, and thanks for joining us here. We appreciate you. We appreciate your comments. This reminds me a lot, which irony here is Landon's going to the Service Academy, but we have a lot of military affiliated students taking classes with us, approximately 25% of our student body. So it's been my experience that while many students will not ask for help, those high stream, low drag military affiliated students, they're taught to take it on and get through it and not ask for help. They're not going to go to their drill sergeant until they absolutely have to go to their drill sergeant. And in a lot of regards, we as educators might be viewed as that drill sergeant. So we have to be in a position to reach out and check in, even with those what I call high stream, low drag. They're like jet planes. They don't need anything from us as they sweep through the sky, or do they? And I think that's Michelle's whole point to this story, is that when we see people that are doing as well as they're doing, and then not, what do we do? I see here in the chat, Jerry shared with us, he appreciates the talk too, and that from his own experiences in applying for the military appointment, the son's accolades for doing that, both as an online student, as an instructor, he's learned how critical it is at the very beginning of a course to assist students to establish and validate that individual self-identity and each of their classmates as they begin their journey. And Jerry, kudos for saying that, kudos for bringing that up, because in my view, that first week introduction is very, very important for setting the stage for comfort, setting the stage for relationship, and setting the stage so that students see us as educators also as a resource.
And Roseanne shared a quote from Maya Angelou. I've learned that people will forget what you said. People will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And I think that's so important for all of us working with our students.
Oh, I'm sorry, Holly, I see you have your hand raised. The microphone is yours.
Oh, thank you so much, Jackie. Yeah, I really loved hearing these true stories. And I love, Michelle, that you brought in the aspect of the pandemic, which I think is something we need to think about for our students and even for ourselves. It really put caring for your mental health in a very unique way. And I think we're all still trying to figure out how to cope with the lack of being right near people as we used to be. So I'm thinking more about like loneliness and how that has been a real issue through the pandemic. And I think it's something that we need to look out for our students who may be a little bit more isolated because they're fully online. and that relationship building, that we actually can do that in an online setting. I think that's something that's so important. I think your story really illustrates that. Michelle, thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you, Holly.
Thank you, Holly. I appreciate you coming on microphone, and I would encourage others to raise your hand, and I'll do a better job paying attention to that also. So thank you. I see also in the chat, and I think this is important, Jamie Patria, hopefully I said that correctly. We're reminded in the text, remain vigilant in guarding the climate in our online courses. And if I'm understanding that correctly, for me, I have a very generous late policy. But I don't have a generous late policy because I want them to use it. I want it in case they need it. I don't want that to become ops normal. I don't want that to be the MO, is that I show up late and I do everything late. That's not what I'm after. I have it in case they get in a pinch, in case they have a problem. And I think this goes back to what Michelle's sharing with us when she talks about the pesticide. You know, how many times do I accept the late paper from a student? Well, I'm gonna want to say every time, but am I doing a service to that student when I do that without first a little pesticide here to reach out and have a one-on-one and say, look, I'm seeing a pattern. It's not a good pattern. It's not a good growth pattern. This is not going to serve you well moving forward. Yes, I'm willing to work with you here, but understand you're not always going to be here in my classroom. And so let's take a look at how do we kill some bad habits, and let's make being timely a focus, because the goal is for everybody to progress through and be successful in all of our curriculum and be successful in the established procedure for the timeliness of all of that. That's the end game goal. Because Michelle said it, when her students graduate, she wants them to feel more as a result of it. And I think there's a lot of success in doing that. So I appreciate, Jamie, you saying that, guarding that climate, because we do. We want them. This is what college life is.
And Julie shared just even sometimes that simple email checking in how things are going can go a long way, because every once in a while you'll send that out and you'll get 3 responses, and maybe they wouldn't have shared without you checking in on them. And maybe it's not the student that you expected to respond, but maybe they needed you to check in on them in that moment.
And Debbie responds to Holly about her youngest daughter. And I think we can all relate. You know, I have 2 daughters, and they're grown now, and they all, in our view, had a dark day. As a parent, I like to think I know how dark it was, but probably don't have a clue. But they go through it. And in their circle of friends, in their circle of educators, hopefully they're finding safe places. And that's what we're talking about here, is being that willing educator to offer that safe place. So thank you, Debbie Carpenter, for responding there to Holly's. I appreciate you.
And Jamie is responding that a powerful personalized response to a student's introduction post can set the stage for building a trusting relationship, so students feel comfortable reaching out proactively when issues arise, knowing that you will be approachable. And I think that's a great idea as well. I'm somebody that gets to go into view some of the classrooms in some of the work I do, and you can definitely get a sense of certain instructors that are very welcoming. You can feel it in the classroom. And I think when students get into a classroom and they feel that openness from the instructors, they're more likely to reach out when they need something. And, you know, some students need a lot of prompts to let you know they're struggling. I'm going to assume Landon's not going to easily speak up. But if we weren't here, he would have needed that help from someone else.
Absolutely true. And Julie points out the value of just a simple email of asking how things are going. And that's why we have Signals, our email tool. We promote that outreach. A little bit of one-on-one can lead a long way to closing what is perceived as a gap, or maybe perceived as a gap. And Kimberly, Luke, thank you for sharing our vulnerabilities and challenges. Our time, sadly, is winding down, and I value your time. So, as you know, good things must come to an end. Next slide, please. Let me close my window here. Please watch the chat box or the screen for a link to the Ed Talks homepage, where this recorded Ed Talk will be archived for future viewing, along with certificates of participation. We would also, you'll also find the link to the Ed Talk homepage was in today's invitation. So you have access to it in a couple of ways, and I hope you'll go back and visit it. Again, we want to acknowledge the work of Dr. Newton Miller of UAGC for inspiring this series. Consider finding yourself a copy of his book, Why Some Seeds Don't Grow, and his 10 principles for what you can do about it. Please mark your calendars for the second Thursday of most months from now until October, same time, same place, and continue our series and our discussion. And please come back and see us for the next session on June the 8th, as Dr. Ashante Aller shares her story. Believe it or not, the seedling is trying to grow. We thank you for joining us today, and a huge thank you again to our very own Dr. Michelle Simasek for sharing with us to inspire our next steps in supporting our students and one another. On behalf of the Assistant Dean, Dr. Denise Maxwell, and UAGC's College of Arts and Sciences, Department of Education and Liberal Arts, we wish you a safe, healthy, and impactful month of May, and we'll see you all next month. Bye, everybody.